OzLand, the movie, what's it all about? The director explains it to us. On the Record starts right now. Hello, I'm John Johnson. Welcome to On the Record. Glad to have you with us on this day, and we are pleased to have with us Michael Williams. He's director of the film OzLand, and he's going to talk about the film industry in the state of Mississippi. And welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Nice to have you with us. Well, when you talk about the movie industry, Mississippi doesn't automatically come to mind, except for some movies that were made in Canton and some other places in the state.
Right.
What's the status of the movie industry in this state?
It's booming.
Ah.
I started working professionally in 2007, and at that point in time, I think there was one feature film that was shot in the state that year, and I worked on it. And now,
What was that?
it was Chasing the White Dragon. It was shot in Tupelo, Mississippi, and since then, it's been growing exponentially. So now I can't keep up with how many movies are being shot at one time in the state. And if you were to talk to the film commission, they could tell you, oh, we have 3 or 4 films going on right now, and 2 more looking at the state. So there's constantly something going on, and it's mostly centered on the coast or in the Jackson area, but they're starting to branch out and discover more of Mississippi and realize that Mississippi really is a great place to make movies, not just for the locations and the people, but for the film incentives and the actual money, the part of the, because it's a business. And so Mississippi is kind of a new frontier to make the filmmaking business easier for studios and smaller budget films.
Who's making these movies?
Everybody. We have people in the state making movies, you have people who are from all over the world and the country coming to make smaller movies, then you have big budget movies like The Help and films like that are coming to the state.
And that was made in Jackson, was it not?
Partly there and also in Greenwood. And then you had The Hollers, which was shot last year, and it was shot mostly in Jackson. Those are big budget movies with big stars, so you have everything from that to things like OzLand, which are very small movies that are all being shot here and making Mississippi known for film.
Let's talk a little bit about your movie, and then we'll go back to talking about generally what's going to happen in terms of the future movie industry in the state. So tell us a little bit about OzLand. What's it all about?
OzLand's a post-apocalyptic drama about a man's interpretation of the wonderful Wizard of Oz in a post-apocalyptic world. So it's an exploration of this man's interpretation and how he's kind of seeing the book and reading it with his own frame of reference. And so he's kind of misinterpreting what he's reading, thinking the things that in the book are actually real in his world. And so it explores his character and the other character, Emery, and kind of their friendship and how this book and this journey they're on is testing all of that and creating a story that's not just about Wizard of Oz, but also it's about human experience and home, family, friendship, imagination, and very important themes that are scattered throughout the film.
What's the genre of that movie? What is it? How's it listed? Is it a comedy?
It's a drama, sci-fi, fantasy, but there's comedy. There's just about every genre is represented in some way, but mostly a sci-fi, fantasy, drama.
Where you the director, were you also the writer of the film?
Yeah, I'm the writer, director, and director of photography.
So talk about the possibilities and how it came about.
I had the idea back in 2010. It was just kind of a seed of an idea, kind of the what if someone in a post-apocalyptic world found a book and thought it was real. And Wizard of Oz kind of came to mind, and it kind of floated around in my head for a while, and I told a lot of my friends about it, and they said, oh, it's a really good idea, you should do it. But I said, oh, I can't make a feature film, it's going to be too expensive. This movie would be way too expensive for something for us to do on our own, so I just put it on the back burner. A few years later, in 2012, the Mississippi Film and Video Alliance out of Jackson were getting ready to give out their grants, so I decided, okay, I'm going to apply for this grant. And if I get it, we'll make the movie. If not, we won't make the movie. And my friend Glenn Payne, who plays Emery, he's also a filmmaker, and he had the same idea. He had a big sci-fi script that he wanted to do. So we both pushed each other to do this grant. We both were like, okay, we're not going to do it. Yeah, we're going to do it. So we forced each other to do it. Last minute, we made our synopsises. He made a script, I made a synopsis. Submitted both of them, and they both got accepted for the grant. So we had this money to kind of kickstart the process. And so at that point, I was like, oh, I've got to write this script. I've got to make this movie that I said was something we couldn't actually make.
Can't do it, yeah.
And so we did a fundraising campaign the next few months and developed the script, and our fundraising went better than we expected. We got more money than we asked for. Still was not a lot of money, but enough money to feel like we could make the movie. And then we just jumped in head first. There were things we didn't know if we were going to accomplish, and when you see the film, you see that we did accomplish it, even though we thought we couldn't. And so from, I guess, 2012 to getting the grant to 2013 getting funding and beginning filming Labor Day weekend 2013, and then a year later, on Labor Day weekend 2014, the film was finished and we premiered it in Columbus. So it was a full year from actual work and then pre-production before that.
Is it running now, or how is it running, and how can people see it?
Right now, well, we're doing our regional tour like we just had in Meridian, and we're also going to be doing the festival circuit. So it'll be in Tupelo, Mississippi at the Tupelo Film Festival in April, and we're waiting to hear back from other festivals around the world. Other than that, we're trying to get distribution. So now the process is trying to contact companies, see who wants to buy it, who wants to put it out there for rental or for purchase, and who wants to get it there. So we're trying to find more screenings and ways for you to buy it.
This is a 24-hour, 7 days a week, 365 days a year effort, is it not?
Oh yeah, I'm always thinking about it, always doing something to figure out how we're going to get it out there, and I'm already working on the next movie right now too. So
can you tell us about it?
It's called Antler. That's all I can say right now. But it's going to be another feature, and hopefully the opportunities from OzLand will help make it a little easier for us to make Antler.
So tell us about your background, where you're from, how you got into this, and where you expect to go with this.
Right, I'm from West Point, Mississippi. I'm born, raised there, and still living. I started making videos, just my youth group friends, when we were in church, in 2004, and we just make little silly videos. And then finally we made one that was a little more serious, and we submitted it to the Tupelo Film Festival and got accepted. And that's when I realized, oh, this isn't just fun. Like, you can actually make movies and compete in film festivals. And when I went to that film festival, I met Philip Gentile, who's a professor at the University of Southern Mississippi, and he said, hey, we have a film program, you should think about it. And I was already planning to go to Mississippi State at the time. And so I went to State for 1 year and then ended up transferring to Southern Miss after that to pursue a degree in film. So I got a Bachelor's of Arts in Film at University of Southern Mississippi and was working on my own stuff at the time too. So I was working during the Christmases and summers on film productions and also doing the school parts. So I kind of snowballed to me realizing, oh, I can get a degree in this and also make a living and make my own films on the side, which are like my art form, but I can still work and make a living doing other things that are still film related.
So those young people who are thinking about it, wanting to know, well, I never thought about this, but maybe this is some direction I'd like to go. What are your needs? What do you ought to be good at if you want to get into this business?
Filmmaking is an industry where anyone can fit. Whether you like being in front of the camera, a lot of people don't, I don't, and so I'd rather be behind the camera. And so there's so many jobs that are technical jobs, whether you're an electrician, you're good at lighting, or you're good at set building. There's so many things that you can do, even if you're just like catering. We need catering people. We need people who are hospitality people who provide food on set and provide accommodations. And then there's the people who are really good at business. If you're really good at business and organization, you can be in the production side, and producers. And so you can be the people who are in charge of keeping us creative folks in line. Since you're not the most creative form, if you're not creative, you can still work in movies because you may have to have that really strict mind on how to make things happen.
I got to ask you, how tough is it to keep creative minds in check?
Oh, it can be tough. You have to tell us how much time we have and how much, we have this much time to work on this. If not, we're going to keep working on it. So, there's a job for everybody. So if you're interested, you can do it.
Did you produce the film also?
Right.
All
yes,
right.
sir.
So explain to me, if you would, what's the difference between a producer and a director?
Right. A director is in charge of the creative vision of the film. So he's in charge of, it's basically his project. So he's the one that's making the creative decisions. You have all these other creative people who are collaborating with you and giving you, I guess, ideas, but you have to find a way to hone them into the story you're trying to tell. And so you're in charge of all that. You're in charge of the actors and the camera and how everything's going to look and feel. But the producers, they're in charge of making it happen because it's like an industry. Even when you're on a small movie, you're basically a business and kind of like a factory. And so they have to keep in charge of the accounting and how much money you're spending each day, whether or not food's going to be here on time. They're keeping all the logistical stuff in check while you have creative people working. So the producers are handling the logistical business side while the director and the other creative people are working on creating the art of movies.
Were you ever, or do you ever still think of going to Hollywood? Is that the place that you have to go, or you don't have to do that?
I have no interest in going to California. I would love to go there and visit, maybe work some, but LA is no longer the filmmaking capital of the world. Louisiana's stealing that from it, and the Hollywood South as a whole is doing that. So you have Georgia, Louisiana, and Mississippi who are really competing against LA and New York and these other big markets that used to be the places you had to go. But now you can stay in the South, and a lot of people from LA move to from Los Angeles, they move to Louisiana to get work because there's more work in Louisiana than there is in LA.
What's appealing about Louisiana?
The film incentives and just a fresh new market. It's cheaper to do things there. And Georgia, Louisiana, and Mississippi all have really competitive film incentive programs. And if you don't know what a film incentive is, that's something the government provides to entice you to spend money in their state. So if a film production comes to Mississippi and they want to spend money here and make a movie here, they get up to 25% cash back initially on everything they spend. So you spend $1, you get 25% cash back. So if $1 million movie comes to the state, they can get 25% cash back right then. And then you can get more percentage if you hire locals, if you hire veterans. So there's a lot of money back, and that's a huge thing for producers. It's all about money. And so
I understand the legislature is also helping in some ways that may help you or may help in the film industry. We'll talk about that and talk about what's the backlot and see how did the movies move from there to West Point, Mississippi.
Right.
Be back in just a moment. Stay with us. We welcome you back to On the Record. Michael Williams is director of the film OzLand and the back lots of Hollywood. That's, I went back a few years ago and looked at the Lone Ranger, and it was in the back lots of California, wherever that may have been. You don't have to do that anymore. And how has that changed the industry? Because you take your cameras wherever they need to be now.
Right. With
more expensive?
In some ways it's not. The technology of filmmaking has improved so much that it's cheaper to make movies now, especially when you're doing it digitally and not with film. And people are more mobile, with the internet age, you can be anywhere and still make a movie. And people are realizing they can do that. They can go to new locations where cost of living is cheaper, or just things are cheaper here than they are in California. So they can come to places like the South and they can find quality work and quality locations, but spend less money and get the film incentives that all these states are providing. So it's a way for them to save money and to get money back after they've already spent the money here in the state.
How do you get the incentives and what do you do?
You can contact your local film commission. So Mississippi has a really great film commission. You can search for, just Google Film Commission Mississippi or go to the Film Office website, and they have information on the actual film incentives, and it's very simple. Basically, you apply for it beforehand if you're a film production, they approve it, and then once you start spending money and at the end of your production, you turn in all of your information and they write you a check for what the percentage that you get back for what you spent here. And it's very easy, and they can contact, and the film commission's happy to accommodate.
Right. Legislature, is there help from the legislature in doing what you need to do?
Right, that's how we have the film incentives. They, our past governor and our current governor have been very supportive, and they have seen that filmmaking is an industry. One of them said, cotton used to be our industry, but now we need a new industry. We need something new, and film is that, because people come here and they spend money and create jobs, and it can be a very viable industry for the state and for any local community. So they understood that, so they passed this legislation to give this film incentive, and they're improving it every year.
I would imagine you talk to classes in school sometimes about what you do, and young people are interested in what you do.
Right.
Is that right? How does that go?
Great. I mean, people are slowly realizing that it's not just an art form, it's actually a job opportunity. And so they can have fun making movies, making art, but it's also a business. It's not all fun and games when you're working on a film. It's really hard work. And there's a lot of jobs out there for it. So I try to encourage people, you don't have to go to LA. We need people to stay in Mississippi to make movies in Mississippi and work on movies here in Mississippi.
So the movie, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's fine.
So the movie he made is OzLand, and there's a trailer that we'd like to look at, and maybe you can explain what we just saw.
Okay, can do that.
Is that what happened to everyone else?
What?
Dry up.
I suppose.
Where do they go when they dry up?
Probably just blow away.
That's it? I found this cool book.
What's it called?
The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Where are we going anyway?
West.
What's there?
Probably more of the same. Nothing.
Maybe something.
We haven't seen anything by now, we never will. So don't get your hopes up. It's more important you focus on surviving.
What if there's more to this world than we know? What if OzLand really exists and that's where everybody is? Maybe everyone there hasn't dried up. The streets are golden, yellow brick. There's color and life, all sorts of wonderful things.
OzLand isn't real. It's just something somebody made up to entertain people.
But what if?
OzLand, what did we just see?
You saw our original teaser trailer, which gives you a feel of the movie, lets you know what it looks like, what it sounds like, and kind of what the inspiration of the film is, kind of the message. But it doesn't give too much away, because we want you to see the film to see all what else there is in the film.
We call it a tease in the news business. How important is that?
It's very important. That's how people know they want to see OzLand. We have some posters I think are nice, but you can't really get a feel for the movie unless you see it in motion. And so the teaser has been a way for us to have that out there to give people a little hint without giving them too much, because we don't want to spoil everything for everybody, but we want them to see a hint of our scarecrow and a hint of some other things in the trailer and say, oh, there's more for us to see.
We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to On the Record. If you saw that trailer, that's incredibly great shooting.
Thank you.
What kind of staffing did you have, and what does it take?
It takes an army to make a movie. The army can be small, it can be big, and with OzLand, we had a very limited budget. We didn't have a whole lot of resources, money, or equipment-wise. So our cast and crew was quite small. When we were in Kansas, we shot 1/4 of the film over 3.5 days.
So it's part of that in Kansas that we saw?
Yeah, part of that was, we shot 1/4 in Kansas and 75% here in Mississippi and a little bit here in Meridian. And so we had, in Kansas, since we had one bus, one van we could take with all of our equipment, we had 5 people on set. We had the 2 actors, myself, and 2 other crew members. So it was very limiting. Everyone was wearing a lot of hats. That's how we can keep our costs down and still make something good, but we can't have a whole lot of people on set. But when we were in Mississippi, we had anywhere between 5 and 10 people, depending on how complicated the day was, because some days are more complicated than others. So you can make a movie with just 5 people, or you can make a movie with 100 people. Right. It kind of depends on what you need to accomplish and how much what resources you have and how much money you have. So
we hear of the great movies, the big movies, where they're trying to keep it under budget and they never do, and they fall behind. Do you have to face that at all?
We make movies very efficiently, and we're very frugal, and we do it very quickly, but we still try to keep quality in mind. We want it to look good and sound good, but we know we don't have to waste a lot of money. I think being from Mississippi helps, that we are raised to save money and be frugal, and I think that helps in that we can be creative. And you don't have to show everything, and sometimes you can do things in a creative way, and you don't need all the equipment. You don't need a whole bunch of people, so it's a lot more manageable when you think about it, that movies are hard, but they don't have to be as hard as some people make them to be.
Sure. How do you find your actors?
I try to find everyone locally. I want to definitely hire Mississippians, or people who live in Mississippi. Glenn Payne, who plays Emery, he's the one with the beard. He's one of my best friends that I've known since 2010, and so when I wrote the film, I wrote that role for him. And then Zack, who's the younger guy in the film, he was at the he was in Columbus at the time, working at the Air Force Base, and so he's originally from Wisconsin, but was living here in Mississippi, and that's how I met him during those few years he lived here. And he kind of fit right into the spot. He auditioned for the role and got it, and then the rest of the crew were people that I've worked with and built a relationship with. So I think it's always important to, when you do start working in film, you find people that you work well with, people you trust, people you like, because it's such a hard experience making a movie, so you want to do it with people you enjoy doing it with.
Most of us are familiar with stage acting, not as much with film acting, so you were telling me that there's a real difference in terms of the two.
Right. I mean, if you're a theater actor, you can definitely transition to film. Zack, before OzLand, had only theater experience, and so it was a challenge for him going to do OzLand, because he had to realize he's not having to use his whole body. He's not having to project to an audience, not having to project to the back of the room. The camera's right there and can see every little detail. So you have to think about the nuances of your performance and the subtleties, what you can do with your eyes, what you can do with the little twitch in your mouth. So it's more inward, and you're basically having to just live it and let it come out through your eyes and through your subtle emotions.
Those who will see this movie and will be looking for that scene in Meridian.
Right.
Where was it shot, and what are we looking for?
It was shot right off the interstate at Royal Land and the old fairgrounds. Zane Royal kind of helped us with his old family property and said, oh yeah, you can use it. So we used the amphitheater area and the Royal Land signs, because we needed a theme park or like a circus type area. So we used that for a good section of the film that's a very pivotal part of the movie. So if you look for it, you'll definitely see it.
Is it fun coming back to places like this and making films like you make?
Oh yeah, and I love Meridian. Meridian's been amazing, and when we came here the first time to film, we realized, oh, there's so many untapped locations. And then since I've been here promoting the screening, I realized, wow, there's so many more untapped locations that people just don't even know about. And so I'm hoping to help spread the word and tell my other filmmaking friends, hey, if you need this or this, go check out Meridian, because they seem very excited to have us here and want us to come back. So that's what we look for in a location. We look for an excited audience, an excited community, and also great locations.
What do cities need to do to make sure that they are involved in the process, and so that they're competitive also?
Right. They need to realize that every town, no matter what you have, is a competitive place for filmmaking locations. Just you need to have a catalog saying, okay, we have these really nice looking places, these not so nice looking places, these rural places, these urban places. So basically anything you have can be used in a movie. You just need to know how to market it. So just have an idea of what you have and sell it to people. So you can put it on your tourism website or your city website, and just make people know that you're film friendly. And if you hear a film coming into the state, and if you're connected with the film commission, they're saying, oh, this film's looking for this kind of location. If you have it, send them your information, send pictures, and say, hey, come check out Meridian and come check out our community and see what we have, and see how we can help you bring the film here. If you're accommodating, films are going to want to see you. So.
Michael Williams, the director, will be right back. Welcome back to On the Record. We were talking during the break. I asked him if he'd seen the film Easy Rider because some of the things that you do remind me of some of the techniques you use. Have you seen it, and did you use anything like that?
I have not seen it in its entirety yet, but it's one of the films that I've actually studied because that was a time of renaissance for the film industry. Back then, you had these golden age of filmmakers in the 40s, 50s, and early 60s that were making these big movies, but then at some point the audiences started tuning out and they realized, oh, we're not making money anymore. We've got to change something. So these big studio heads started looking towards the young up-and-coming filmmakers like Martin Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, and they're like, we need to give them a little bit of money and let's see what they can do. And they made movies like Easy Rider, American Graffiti, and movies that blew up, that cost very little to make, but made the studios lots of money. And so that's what was the renaissance of film back then. And you had movies like Star Wars, Jaws, and all these movies came out that changed the film industry. And now it's happening again. You have Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, and these bigger film people who are the big movie makers who are having trouble making money. And so now they're turning to people like us who can do it again and do something different and cheaper and more interesting. So it's exciting.
We've got just a couple of minutes left. Who do you admire most in the film industry?
Oh, that's tough. I mean, Steven Spielberg's always been a huge inspiration just because I love the stories he tells. But even George Lucas, I mean, I think he's revolutionized things so much in terms of just the business side and the technology side and even story side and how you market movies. But I also love Tim Burton, and I love basically anyone who has a really creative vision, a very visual vision. Very quickly, how do we get in touch with you? Use the website? Right, we have OzLandTheFilm.com. You can check it out and purchase merchandise, figure out about more screenings, and you can also check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/OzLandTheFilm. And every like we get on Facebook helps us seem more legitimate to a distributor, so hopefully we can get the film out there. Michael Williams, great talking with you. Yeah, thank you so much. All right, thank you very much, and thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week. Have a great week.